Right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah C. Gavagnoni.
bringing you this week's collective energy share in Ascended World. Because we have so much to talk about today, there's so much going on, and as everybody has this, one seemingly single stream of topic of consciousness right now. We met on Friday, as we usually do, and I wrote the notes since you were in the car.
I was driving.
You were driving. But one of the things that everybody wants to know about, everybody is like having this this hyper awareness of this whole coronavirus thing, right? And we're all sort of, good morning, Laurel. We're all sort of getting sick of the topic, but it's still top of mind for everybody. And there is a lot of stuff going on. But the thing is, this is a shiny, right? And
Right.
and this is something that's really important for us to begin to look at. What I saw in meditation and what I keep on seeing in meditation is it's sort of like and many of us who work in higher consciousness have been talking about this, like stay calm, stay centered, don't give yourself away to what other people are saying, what the news is saying, what,
Right.
panicked neighbors and family and whatever is saying. And really, this is such a great opportunity for us to go inside.
Right. I mean, it's almost like we're being forced to.
Right. Well, we're forced to go inside right now, right?
Right. And we're forced to just focus on ourselves.
Yes.
Focus on our well-being, because that extends outward, just like we've talked about.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, what a great manifestation in many ways to force us to do it,
Right.
Because many people, including my husband, my daughter's boyfriend, they're on, homework now, working from home now, mandatory working from home for the next couple of weeks. And, they're putting out all these things and staying at home, close to home, blah, blah. So here's the thing. So it's forcing us to go into our house, which is our house is a representative of what? Our body,
Yep.
right? Our physical vessel that we create and hold our spirit in here, the piece of our spirit here. And
well, and wasn't it a few weeks ago we talked about being on house arrest?
Oh my God, we did, didn't we? I totally forgot.
And here we are.
And here we are. We sort of are, aren't we? But here's the thing. So there's a couple of things that I want to sort of preclude this with. Everybody has their own individual journey, right? So I think that's a really important thing. Everybody has their own individual circumstances. One size does not fit all for everybody, right? Now, right now, that's what everybody thinks that they are supposed to be doing, like one size fits all. And there's a general guideline. And then the key, though, is it's still to continue to go inside. So here's the thing. Okay, you can't go out, or you can't go to big events. You can't go to this, you can't go to that, blah, 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 because a lot of stuff is getting canceled. I mean, even, I guess, church services and things like that are all canceled.
Right.
Too, right? So, instead of losing yourself in, the other thing I see, which is really interesting, is I see a lot of people talking about, how much alcohol they can bring into their house since they're going to be stuck in their house. And I'm going, because it's an escapism route, right? And it's all desperate ways of getting out of looking in the mirror at what's going on within ourselves and reassessing, right? What a fabulous, and I saw that this morning in meditation, I was like, what a fabulous reflection for us. The forced reflection for us to look at what it is we're escaping within ourselves. All right, now, well, but this is a completely different topic than what we were talking about Friday.
It really is.
Yeah.
But it feels good.
It feels really good, and it's really relevant. The other part of it that we did talk about Friday is, while we are in this space, and it's a holding space.
Almost like a cocoon.
It's a cocoon. There is another entire huge level of shifting going on at another level of consciousness, right?
Right. Right.
So many of us are being guided to do different kinds of things. And many of us might actually even step back from being, out there in the spotlight and everything else, but mostly because it's time to do the work. I don't like to say the work, but holding the space for the shift that's going on.
Right.
And so we're forcing ourselves into that.
Well, and forcing ourselves to connect with people in a way that we're totally unfamiliar with.
Yes.
Out of practice.
That we're out of practice in. Yes.
Out of
That's right.
practice.
Yes.
Right.
And yeah, so there's a lot of things. So there's all of these different, I was thinking about this and meditating on it, and so I might be guided to do things differently than many other people are, right? We all are going to have our own guidance to do things differently. And that doesn't make it wrong or right. The key is there's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of guidance. The key is really listening to guidance versus the ego. If you are driven to, hole up in your house and hide because you're afraid, then that's ego driven, right? If you are guided to go and do something, even though everybody else is saying it's not, a good idea or whatever, but if the guidance is there, then trust the guidance. I always say trust the guidance over everything else. And this is a great test for us, for those of us who have been going through an extensive period of, focusing on the expansion of our consciousness. And, we've talked about over the past weeks, we've been talking a lot about victimhood, right?
Right.
Now, we could talk about, like last week, we talked a little bit about conspiracy theory stuff, right? And the population control. And a lot of people I know are saying, well, this feels really weird. This doesn't feel right. There's something like off about this whole thing and this overreaction and, the shutting down of all this stuff. And it's like, true that. And that could be another level, right? Altogether.
Right.
But the key is to stay clear and calm and conscious, and to not fall into reaction.
Right. Right. Where your focus is the fear, not the being.
Right. And unfortunately, that's where many people are. They get into the fear, right? Because, we can get into the semantics. You and I are both long-term holistic health practice people that we've been doing this and living holistic health for a really long time, both of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we can talk about preventive health. We could talk about healthy eating. We can talk about all those kind of things, right? Where was this leading to? I forgot. Oh my God, I've lost the train of thought. That was a really good thought too.
Well, now is time to really be the lighthouse that we talk about,
right?
Because it's been taken away from us the outlet of running around and chasing people and running after them to be their lighthouse.
Right.
It's
right.
It's
and
time to stay at home.
Yeah.
And allow yourself to become that being that can be the lighthouse without having to run around and do things.
Right. But, and we are, what I was going to say. Yeah. So we could talk about the holistic stuff, right? Yeah. So that's exactly right. We could talk about all that stuff. We could talk about holistic living and how and this is better and this is not as good and But at the same time, people with, that are over 60, people who are getting, have a weakened immune system. You have a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And there's all these criteria, and you have all these people out there trying to, assert their authority over you, right? A lot of people, I was watching this on Facebook yesterday and over the weekend. A lot of people going, oh, well, I did this and I used to work with this, or I used to work with this doctor, or I, was this. And I know that, and I'm going, but the reality is this particular thing that's going on is has really a very low impact, right? That there are really a relatively small percentage of people who've actually worked with it directly on.
Right.
Right. So I don't care what doctor you are. I was like, my husband and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like, I don't care if you're a doctor. Honestly, it almost takes away from my respect for somebody not to be. I mean, not because, and it's because what is it? Oh, well, I was fed this line from the CDC. I was fed this line from the AMA, and this is what I'm supposed to say to all of my things. And,
right.
you know, it's funny. I listen to my husband. I listen to people I know who work with, you know, customers and stuff. And well, we all work with customers. All of us who have businesses and work. But it's like, oh, this is the line we're supposed to give our customers. I mean, this is what I hear. This is what we've been fed. This is what I'm
right.
supposed
And
to
they even
say.
go so far as to say, well, we've been told.
Right. Right. And that's really what's going on. So you have this entire chain, this whole domino of ripples of like, telephone, the game.
That's
Telephone.
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Was the telephone game.
I was trying to think of what the name of it was. It's just called telephone, right?
Right.
So it gets watered down, right? It gets
personalized.
It depersonalized. It gets depersonalized, right? As we just pass it, if people just pass it on. So that's part of what we are here to break now. We're here to break that automatic reaction, right? Because when you get that, oh, this is the official statement from the CDC, or this is like, it sound, you know, it's like, oh, well, they have to know. And it's like, okay, if you've taken basic biology, then you would know what the basics of immunology would be, right?
Right.
Like how our immune system works.
Right.
And, you know, like I heard one prominent doctor on the TV said, that I was watching the other night, said something about how, oh, well, you know, we have no immunities to this. You know, we have no immunity. The thing is, we have no immunity system. I'm like going, but that's why we get sick, is because we don't have immunity to something that we come across, right?
Right.
And I was just like, and I looked at my husband. I said, so if I'm correctly remembering biology, which I took in high school and in college, it has to do with, you know, oh, well, a foreign something, you know, enters the system and the body has no like antibodies already set for it.
Right.
So it reacts with a fever. So to try to burn it out, it looks for a cocktail. What's the cocktail that's going to work to get rid of this thing out of our body? That's why we get sick, period. That doesn't matter whether it's the coronavirus, the cold, the flu, a 24-hour virus.
Exactly.
Or anything, right? So there's no difference with this than anything else. It's a matter of like having you know, and here's the thing. Well, so many could turn to this is where I was going with this. So many turn to the holistic areas, like what we should be eating and everything else, right? Because we actually, yes, eating a good balanced diet and sleep and all that kind of stuff. What they're leaving out is the emotional state of people, right?
Right.
And our spiritual state and our state of consciousness, right? Because if we shut down and we become sheep, we are denying our own guidance. We're denying our own wellness and balance within our bodies.
And in fact, I was just having a conversation with a client, and I was saying, you know, when you take the body and feed it all these vitamins and all these supplements to do this, you're essentially giving the message to your body, you can't do this on your own. So I'm going to step in and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. How are you ever going to be able to manage that complex, massive system we've created in the body versus I'm going to empower you with the knowledge and the remembering that you know how to do this. And you can't do that through vitamins and all these external things. You have it within you. That doesn't mean you can't allow your body to call on those substances for support.
Right.
But that's not the whole answer.
Well, and also when we let other people tell us what our bodies will or will not do, right? Then we give away our power. Well, there's that victimhood, right? We've been in this whole theme of victimhood that we're talking about, like getting beyond the victimhood for the past, whatever, you know, month and a half or so, several months. And these are big steps for us in terms of transcendence, that getting beyond victimhood and the victimhood of saying, oh, your body's going to react this way, or you could do this, or da, da. And it's so funny because then you hear everybody start repeating the scripts that they've been hearing other people
Right.
feeding to them. And I'm just like, well, like like somebody I was talking to said something about, well, yeah, but then, even if you don't get infected with it, well, then you could be a carrier and da, da, da. And I said, as you are with any other virus or cold or thing,
Right.
anything. Right. This is not unique. This is like just a different strain. Okay.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so let's just, and part of the thing, they're like, oh, well, we want people to stay home so we can minimize, the people in the hospitals. And it's like, well, if people didn't panic, right, at the first sign of anything and realize that their body's immune system in general is there to do the job for them.
Well,
right.
And the more people that are exposed to it and get it and get over it and move on,
mm-hmm.
the more the immunity builds within the population to where this is a non-event.
Right. Right. And so, and it's not saying, like it's not that it's not that it's not to say to ignore it completely or anything else. Like, yes, I see what they're doing. There's nothing wrong with us coming back within ourselves. There's nothing wrong with us taking a break. Even if it's a forced break, I think it's great. Right?
No, I agree. I totally agree. Use this time productively.
Yeah.
Don't just sit in your victimhood.
Well, and that's the thing. Don't spend the time, though, glued to the TV set, glued to the internet, glued to the news stations who are feeding propaganda and fear in many ways.
Right.
Instead of saying, okay, look, this is what I'm doing. And now I'm going to go on with my life, right? I'm going to go on with my life as it's structured right now. I'm on house arrest, essentially, right? So, okay, what can I do that's going to optimize this time that I don't typically have?
Right.
Exactly. I'm not going to spend all the, why would you spend all the time? Here's the thing. Saturday, I went to a funeral and it was a beautiful funeral. It was somebody who I used to work with years ago when I was in corporate that my husband has been working with because he's at a company I used to work at years ago. And so we both knew him, and great guy, really nice guy, anyway, I was very happy to see there were like probably 80 or 90 people at the funeral. They weren't, scared of going and all that kind of stuff. And the thing that was fabulous was on the way to the funeral. So, I texted myself this so that I would not forget it because I knew I would blank. On the way to the funeral, Scott and I are in the car. And the song, I Just Want to Celebrate comes on. It's like, I just want to celebrate another day of living. Right. And I was like, oh my God. And Scott and I look at each other and we're like, now, is that like not the perfect, pre-funeral, message. And the man whose funeral it was, I mean, he was present all the way through and there was such love. He was so exuberant and happy, and he was there touching everybody. And the whole funeral was beautifully done because it was all focused on the joy of the interaction and what this person did instead of like the sadness and the grief and, even his family. It was just beautifully done. And they even took time after the funeral to they did a reception. They even took time to, they took time where people would tell stories, funny stories about their interactions or things that they remembered. It was so beautiful and heartwarming, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it was like, and all I could think of sitting there was, that is me expressed as that person, right? He is me expressed as him. Right. And thank you for so beautifully completing the life, the experience of that particular faceted, individual. The divine is you, right?
Right.
And that whole that whole song, and then it was funny because there were like 3 songs after that, like up till we got to the funeral, they were all like Scott's like, did we tap into like a pre-funeral playlist or something? I'm like, maybe. But it was all about living every day and like really, enjoying your life. And if we're spending our time in fear all the time, we don't enjoy and we lose. And part of our purpose in being, and it was great because you know what, I'm not big on church stuff. I'm not big on sermons and, you know, like Christian church stuff, whatever. But the pastors who spoke, there were a couple, because this guy was also very involved with this church. They were fabulous. And one was talking specifically about, well, you know, as we mourn the passing of this person, really what's even more important in the morning is to find the joy of like
right,
the beautiful life and the, you know, full and rich and experiential life that this individual experienced.
right. Because that's the certainty in this uncertainty.
Yes.
Is that joy?
Yes. And so when we get so stuck in this fear, right, and this hyper awareness, because, and my saying that when we go to do stuff, you know, when we go to do stuff and we're thinking, oh my God, that person just coughed, or oh my God, that person just touched their face. Like,
I know.
I saw a great rant that I saw on Facebook over the weekend that was really hysterical about a woman at a grocery store experience. But it's like when we get really over hyper about that kind of stuff, we lose all of our joy. We lose all of our, you know, being able to be centered, right? Because we're afraid.
I'm getting a message that our broadcast was interrupted. I don't know if we're still live or not.
It still says we're live.
What does your phone show?
Oh, my phone's showing something. Let me see. It says we're live. But the video is not coming up.
Maybe we should just keep going because we'll have a recording, right?
Yeah, we will. So anyway, yeah, that's what we're just going to do. We'll just keep on recording.
Or maybe it's Facebook doesn't like what we're saying. Hadn't thought of that.
Put the recording up after. That's fine. So, you know, but the thing is, living in fear. Yeah, I'm just going to leave my phone up and it'll just circle or not. That's fine. So the thing is, oh, are we there again? I think we're there. I think we're up again. I don't know. Maybe we're frozen. Okay. You know what? This is recording anyway, so we need to
we'll just keep going.
So, you know, the thing about living in fear is we lose our aptitude for living in joy in our present moment and centeredness, and that we can do that no matter what.
Right.
You know, I am so that was a great reminder. That whole funeral was a great reminder, not of death, but of like what we do, what we can be tasked with doing, and living in that presence and joy and love and fulfillment in every moment. And the thing is, when we come to that place of going inside, like we were talking about earlier, right?
Right.
Okay, so now we've gone inside to our houses. Now let's go inside to ourselves.
Right.
Take a breath, and there's nothing to be afraid of, because there's nothing that's outside of us, essentially, right?
Right.
When we start to embrace that, you know, like I've been going out there and connecting with the coronavirus. I've been connecting and being like, okay, whatever the purpose is, and there's a much larger purpose out there, like we started talking about earlier, right? There's a bigger
absolutely
thing going on, right? We have a bigger shift, a much bigger shift that's underneath the surface. And I went through a whole week of like having this incredible, huge surges of this amazing orgasmic energy running through my body consistently, right? Because I wasn't getting lost in any fear.
Right.
If you're not getting lost in fear or irritated or judging or whatever, it's like, well, what if I'm just present in my own self, in my own body, in my own life right this second? And I allowed, and it actually felt fabulous. Still does. It's calmed down. It's smoother, but it's still there. And every time I just tap into it, it just explodes in this beautiful whatever.
Euphoria.
Yeah, that would be a good word. And so it's interesting because it's many of us have been getting for years to remember how to be the calm in the storm.
Right.
to be the center of in the chaos, right? This is a perfect test for ourselves. I keep on getting it's a test. It's not even the thing, right?
It's like a collective chaos versus just the individual chaos we've been experiencing.
Right.
And it's ramped up. It's the next step out. And
right.
It lets us practice being with ourselves and being comfortable in that space, and then allowing that expansion out to others in a totally different way for when something, like we said, bigger comes. We've had this experience.
And we haven't, and it was funny because yeah, I was talking to my husband on Friday, and we were like, and I said, yeah, God, just think this is a relatively small thing. What would happen if we actually had a real big catastrophic catalytic event, right? You know,
Right.
and this is like practice of, can we stay centered? And I see many people who've been doing this kind of work for so long, and they fall into the fear, and it's like, but okay, we'll have those moments because the ego's still there. But the thing is for us to be observant to the ego, to step back and be like, okay, breathe.
Right.
Disengage. And you know, many people say, oh, well, I'm not going to do this because of this, right? Because it's not safe, and I'm like, this is all ego based, right? Are you doing it because you're guided, or are you not doing it because are you not doing it because you're guided to not do it, or I mean, that's the only answer.
Right. Right.
And it's not ego guidance. This is higher guidance. Am I guided to do this way, or am I guided to not do it this way? So it's for us to listen to the information out there, but to go inside to listen to our guidance and say, what is there for me to do or not do?
Exactly.
Is it for me to do this? Is it for me to go on this trip? Is it for me to, you know, go to this event or to this place? And, you know, the funny thing is, when you remove the fear, a good portion of the time, a good portion of the time, the answer you get is a lot more of a surprise than the ego would expect.
Right. Right.
So
and it makes total sense.
Yes. And so when we get to that place of inner guidance and calmness and centeredness, you know, because it's interesting. I posted on Facebook over the weekend a thing about don't panic, right? From the Hitchhiker's Guide. Don't panic. That's the thing.
Right.
When we panic, we stop listening to our guidance, right? Because then we get lost in fear. And I was talking about, well, yeah, you know, I'm still going on with my life.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I'm not stopping my life for this. I'm going on in the way I'm guided to, right? And so there are many who, like, that I've been talking to, who are like really nervous because they're especially self-employed, right?
Right.
Because it does affect small businesses. But I'm like, okay, but step back for a minute. Okay. So like, say you're an event-based company, and a wedding-based company, a photographer or whatever, you know, I'm like, okay, things that are getting canceled right now most likely will be rescheduled for later this year.
Oh, absolutely.
Things that are not getting done now are still going to need to get done in general.
Right.
And so, and if they're not, then it's a great opportunity for us to reassess how we're doing things, that it would be more of a flexible opportunity, right?
Right.
So
it's such an opportunity. It's the O word, you know, opportunity. It's a time to sit back and reassess and see, is there a whole different way to do this?
And this meaning not just how we're reacting to this, right? This meaning life in general, right?
Exactly.
This meaning, like, what am I doing? Am I doing what I really love doing? Am I happy doing it the way I'm doing it? Or can I do it in a different way, right?
In a even better way.
In an even better way. Can I choose different things that I would have not have seen before, because I now have the opportunity to see them from a different perspective?
Because I'm not buried in doing it the same old way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So step back and take a breath. And that's what I keep on telling people is that, you know, before you react. And, you know, my kids went to DC last week. They had a great time, my two girls. And they're fine. They were fine. And actually, my youngest had to go back to Wilmington last night because she has to still work.
Oh, see, my daughter came home and they closed her work.
Yeah. Since she works at a pet store, I don't think they're closing because people still want to go and get pet food. But
right.
In fact, I asked her if she could do extra hours this week because I had a lot of people that were, out. And so it's like, okay, so guidance was, I talked to her and I said, well, what do you feel? She's like, yeah, I feel it's okay.
Right.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, well then here's the thing. I'm going to tell you this. All I'm going to say is don't get yourself stressed over what's going on there at work.
Right.
Because of other people and whatever, because stress lowers your immune system, right? Don't get yourself stressed. Don't let them overwork you. Make sure you go home and, you get an adequate amount of sleep and stuff like that. And that you eat normally and stuff. And I said, because she tends to like be a savior, I'm trying to help break her of that fudge,
Right.
So, and so, yeah. And I'm not reacting from fear, like there was that mother little ego that was going, oh, is she going to be okay? And whatever. And my guidance is just like, she's going to be fine.
Right.
So, and the funny thing as well, the basis of my business is that people come to my house or I work with them online actually. So it's really just not changing anything for me right now, except maybe some group gatherings getting canceled, but not really so far. And I'm not guided to stop doing anything. But the thing is, what I'm guided to do and what you're guided to do might be two different things.
Exactly. And
that's okay. It's not wrong or right. There's no thing is to stop judging, because we get into the judgment of, oh, well, that person, she's a danger to other people because she's doing that.
Right.
And what if, well, if guidance says it's going to be fine, then I trust it's going to be fine.
Exactly.
So, but the thing is, like, so beyond that, like, because we've already gotten to very remedial stuff on having to do with this, but from the bigger picture, we have some big, huge shifts going on. And this has definitely been an event that has been created at the collective level for us to force ourselves into a different paradigm, right? To hold space in a different way. And then those of us, it's almost like we're being, those of us who have been working consciously at the collective levels are being pushed to a place where we will be guided to do things we haven't been guided to do before that might be different from a bunch of the rest of the population.
Right.
So that's why it's important to not act in fear.
Right.
And to get stuck in fear and even stuck in what your spouse or your neighbors or your friends or, your coworkers or whatever are projecting. But to just actually stay the calm in the center, because the more we be.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Oh, there it came back. Oh.
Okay. The more that we can be centered and in a place of wholeness and clear, the more we can. Now I'm getting all like notifications. Like that's great. Boy, well, there's a lot of resistance to this, isn't there?
It really is. Really? I just got a thing that says your internet connection is unstable. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of instability out there.
Well, we'll have the recording.
Right.
That's all I have to say. But yeah, so yes. And at the third level, is there stuff that has to do with, the conspiracy theory stuff we were talking about last week? Absolutely. I'm sure of it. Right.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
And, but I don't put any fear to that either, as we were talking about. It's the transcendence.
We as a collective consciousness created this event.
Yes.
And if you just see it as that, follow your guidance to channel whatever movement you feel guided to, it's perfect. It's absolute perfection.
Yes. So for everybody, here's your task list, take a breath. That's the first one, right?
And then take another one.
And then take another one, right? And maybe 5 more. But oh my gosh, if you do nothing else, meditate and clear your mind of the chatter.
Right.
If you haven't done meditation before, do it now. And those of us who are very adept at this, those of us who practice this all the time, don't get away from it. Like actually recommit yourself. You know,
Right.
like I had to do that myself because you get distracted so easily with all of this chatter going on.
Right.
And I kept on like having to pull myself, rein myself back in, rein myself, get back in. Cause then you know what happens is you listen, then you start to judge. Oh, this is right. And this is wrong. It's like, no, it's not for me to judge either. It's just, this is what's going on. This is how I understand it. And it might be different than what you know, it's being presented as. So, but to do that is to have to be constantly observant to our own reactions, to trust, because here's the thing. I'll tell you what, last night in Dreamland, there was a lot of magical stuff going on. Like
It's a busy night.
seriously magical. And I woke up this morning with, it was really funny. My alarm went off and it like jolted me out of this dream. And I was telling Scott this morning, I was like, the last thing I remember was I was trying to get, I was not trying. I was to get someplace to meet up with somebody, this woman, and I had to take a certain path, and I was taking this path and I literally had to walk through this store where there was to be a door on the other side. And I went through the store and I get to where the door's supposed to be and it's not there. It's just a wall. Right. And there were a couple of women there and they were doing some stuff by the wall. And I said, yeah, excuse me. And the funny thing is I didn't need to see the door to know it was there in the dream.
Right.
And I said, excuse me, I've got to get through. And these two ladies were like, oh, well, before you can do that, you have to do this, this, and this. And you have to da, da, da. And they're telling me like all these things I have to do. And in the meantime, I just put my hand out and I put my hand on the wall.
When the door appeared.
And the door appeared. And then they were like, oh. And I just walked through. But that's really, and I thought, well, and then my alarm went off like right after that. And so it was really fresh in my mind when I woke up. And I said, but that's so indicative of what's going on right now.
Right.
You have to do this. You can't do that. You must do this. You can't do that. You have, you know, like you have to do this. And, da, 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 and if you don't, you're bad. And if you do, you're good. And I'm just I'm just being from where I'm being called to be. Right.
Right. Right.
I'm doing from that being, and that is our commit. That is my commitment, you know, and that's for all of our commitments. Because when we transcend all this chatter that's based in fear, that's when we see the beauty of what's going on at the much bigger picture.
Right. Right.
And I mean, even beyond the population control conspiracy stuff, right? Well, I don't even want to call it conspiracy stuff. The population control stuff that's still going on, but
Right.
to get even beyond that, because when we say bigger level, people are like, oh, you mean like at the, you know, Illuminati and no, I'm talking about higher consciousness, the higher consciousness level of the huge. This is it. This
Right.
is it, folks. Like we're in the game.
This is why we're here.
Yes. Oh, I say that and a whole like shiver went up my back. Right. Yeah. This is just the beginning.
Right.
And now the magic is really going to happen. Well, it already is happening, but it's almost like it's going into overdrive, right?
Right.
And so, but for us to be able to know that the door is there, even if we can't see it,
right,
it has to be for us to be in complete self-confidence of the trust and the guidance that we get within us.
Right. It's like taking the step and then the step will appear.
Yes. Right. And this is like living it now.
Right.
So, and quite the test for all of us. So for everyone today, I think our session is all about allowing ourselves to have that common centeredness, right? Trusting that we have all the answers within, remembering that in every moment, and of saying, if I am presented with this, if I am guided to stay home,
right,
what is there for me to get from this experience? Like, what is there for me to look at that I wouldn't have otherwise seen, right? To have that clearance, the clearness, the clarity. And, you know, I just keep on reaffirming, like I open my heart and allow a possibility to be able to see what it is for me to realize my divine destiny, right? Or whatever I'm here to do in every moment.
Right.
And so, yeah, this is like, it's, and I don't want to say it's, I don't even want to say it's like a test run, because this is actually a run, right?
Right.
It's like we've already begun the marathon.
Right. It's the preliminary.
But it's like the beginning of the run, right? It's the beginning of the, and so I don't want to call it the race, but it's like
It's
the
the
plan.
pre-games.
Well, not even the pre-games, because we started the game. We've had the pre-games for years now. This is like,
True.
we've done
That's
it.
true.
The gate, the gun's gone off and the gates have opened, you know. But it's not like a race. It's the, now we're in it, and in a different way. And I think that's going to be more and more clear to us in the upcoming weeks and months and whatever. However, the key is really that just to have that open heart, to allow a possibility in listening and in committing to our own internal guidance and listening in that clarity and calmness. Please just take the time to listen every day, 10 to 15 minutes, right? That quietude really helps a lot,
Right.
if not more. Get out in nature and listen to the rhythm of the earth, right? The vibrations, the rumbling that's going on.
Right. Listen
Let,
to your own breathing
yeah,
and just allow yourself to follow your breath through every cell of your body.
yeah, and flow with it. You know, you have a whole bunch of people going, oh, we'll have this activation, that activation, whatever. It's like, you don't need all that right now. What we need right now is quietude
Right.
and centeredness.
Right.
And like, no, I'm not saying we don't need the activation, but when we get into that, we have all that inside of us. And it's a matter of,
Already.
okay, all right. And so now it's like, okay, so I commit myself to the quietude to allow myself to access this now.
Right.
And we might do it together in groups, and we might do it individually. That's where the guidance comes from, right?
Right.
So whatever it is, so for us to be there, to stay there, and to stay in a place of love and wholeness and connectedness. Because unfortunately, as in this backwards world, when we have something like that's a big event that is to be a catalyst for us, sometimes it seems to the ego as if it's a horrific thing, right?
A punishment or a
Or punishment, and we get stuck in the
or
failure. Oh, it was a failure of something, right? Instead of,
right.
nope.
A punishment.
Whenever I have tuned out and been out in that larger, higher consciousness for the past several weeks, all I get is it's all perfect and beautiful.
Absolutely.
Like even more so than ever. It's just like, oh yeah, okay.
And that's what you bring into your home, into
Yes.
yourself, into this
Yes.
vessel.
Yes.
Right.
So for whatever it is, so that each and every one of us can remember to do that, you know, to be able to step away from the fear, to trust that you are worthy, you are divine, you are the infinite, so that you have all the access that you need. And to know that the messages will come in the way that are, you know, and every message that you get, to step back and ask, is this my truth, right? Is this for me? Don't say, is it right or wrong? You know, I would say,
Right. Right.
is this for me?
Right now.
Right now, right? Because it might be tomorrow, but not today. Or it might have been yesterday, but not today.
Exactly.
So all of that. And to consciously, because I feel like what's really important here above everything else is that getting beyond all this so quickly, so that we can all just be plugged in consciously at this much higher consciousness of shifting that's going on. Because I think the more of us who consciously do that, the faster and more complete it will be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. That felt really nice.
Yeah, I think I could have just stayed out there.
There was a little bit of like, but in the beginning,
Right. Yeah.
like so many in the collective. But then once we sort of sat back and it was like, oh, this feels good. I'm like, and I could just sort of feel that collective sigh of, oh, yeah, this.
It was funny in the beginning. My daughter's running around with the dog, and I heard her say, "No."
What I saw in the beginning went back to when I was at the funeral on Saturday, and there was one point I forgot about this. There was one point in the church service or the funeral service where I was sitting there, and you could feel this wave of this, like even though they were doing really positive, funny stories or whatever, you could still feel this wave of sadness, right? And I was guided to, and I looked into that, and I was like, well, the only reason we get sad at funerals is for egoic reasons, like, right? Because why are we sad at funerals? Oh, I'm going to miss the person. There's going to be a hole in my life.
It's about you.
It's about you. It's not about them, right?
Absolutely.
Or oh well, like, and then people start thinking, oh well, what happens when I die? What happens when my spouse dies? And like those kind of things. And it was like I could hear that. I totally forgot about it, so we went out there, and I could hear all that chatter. And all I was guided to do was just be present in like love here. And it was like almost like that being the lighthouse thing, because I could just feel it sort of like expand out, right? And it was so easily calming, right? And it was like funny, all the chatter sort of like the chatter that I heard,
right?
It's just
that supersedes anything that your ego feels is going to be missing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And like I said, the person was present, so present there at the funeral too. And it was such a sparkly kind of thing. And I was like, so look at this whole thing, right? So what are people scared of dying? I mean, I guess somehow it was all related, because I'm like, so we're afraid of dying. But when we stop being afraid of dying, because it's just another suit that we discard or done with these genes, and it's time, or graduate.
Right.
There's nothing to be sad about, right? There's nothing to be scared about.
We're scared, right?
Right.
We're fearful.
Yeah, and it's like, okay. And then when I was seeing all that, it was like that's when everything in the collective sort of went, oh,
right.
And there was a nice calm, like beautiful energy. Yeah.
The collective went, oh, I remember that.
Yeah. Right. That,
Right.
So that's where there is for us to stay. If we're living in fear, then the thing is to look at why we are fearful, like what we're fearful of.
Right.
And we can shift that, because it's just remembering that nothing is outside of us. There's nothing to fear, that, guidance will always lead the way, not the egoic guidance that says, oh no, you can't do this or whatever. It's dangerous. Anytime in your mind here, it's dangerous or whatever, that's always ego, just to tell you.
Right.
Even if you're saying, well, anyway. So it's just a matter of staying in that centered, expansive state. So take it day by day, take it hour by hour.
Right.
Whatever it's going to take to be present in a space of love. And many of us in the weeks and months to come are going to be called upon to be that lighthouse.
Right. And this seems simple, but it's power. That's where the power is in the simplicity.
Well, because we take away all the chatter and the complexity of the ego, and it becomes that simple being.
Right.
So,
right.
So practice that this week as things continue to progress, and stay in a place of love, and come back to this. And you can do this session over and over again. Just come back to this
every time you need it.
Every time you need it. And so we'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Evignoni
signing off on this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.